Hello everyone, it's Karen from Vintage Style Journals. As promised earlier in my video on the Stay Wet palette, I'm going to just try to create a very quick iris. It's not something that you need to have many art skills to be able to create, but for those of you that are watching this, I think you're probably interested. So I just wanted to put it together very quickly for you, just to try and inspire you to have a go and see that it's not a drawn out process necessarily. This is a very cheap sort of style, almost folk art style of creating an iris. As you can see, I've got my wet palette here that I created earlier, and the paints here are the same ones that I placed earlier in the day. Now these have been sitting out in the open air for the last few hours and they haven't actually moved. They've become a little bit more moist. As you can see, some of them have flattened out a little bit, but I haven't had the lid on them, so I think it's because I've got such a wet surface underneath here that it's just happened that way, I suppose. Now, before I started this video rolling, I quickly painted an envelope, and I just want to show you, it's nothing spectacular, but I tend to paint all my envelopes that I send out in either a rose or otherwise. But I thought I'll try an iris this time to see if it'll cover up those postcode squares that are on it. And this is what I came up with. Now, that took me less than 2 minutes to actually paint. So I'm hoping that if you stick with me, you'll be able to learn to do something like this. We might doody-dar it up a little bit in a minute. I'm not going to worry so much about this one because it's on an envelope. But when I start painting, you're going to see why it's so very easy to get something that's quite pretty. And you can do this on your journal pages if you're brave enough. Just have a little bit of a practice on some paper, and then try it on your journals, just to do a quick flower, if it's a flower journal, of course. Now I've got a couple of brushes here. These are just round brushes, both of these. They're old brushes that I'm using. I wouldn't use a brand new brush for this unless you're willing to ruin it somewhat, because it is quite taxing on the brush to paint this type of style. I've also got my angle shader here, which I'll be perhaps just making it a little bit nicer with some shading in the towards the end. But I think because I'm using just a piece of watercolor paper, it's just sitting flat on my desktop. I think I'm going to probably make stickers out of this anyway once it's dry and ready to roll. So without further talking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bigger of the two. This brush here created this particular size, so if you want a larger one, then use a larger brush, pretty much. So let's get started. I'm thinking I might do a little bit of a mix of the Deox purple and the purple alizarin here, crimson, yeah, purple alizarin. So I'm just going to load this brush up, and as you can see, it's quite an old looking brush. So I'm just going to dab it in, move it aside, just load that brush up really nicely with the paint, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the purple and I'm going to bring it over here just to change the color of the permanent alizarin here. Might want a little bit more purple on that. It's up to you what colors you use. Obviously use what you've got. As I've said before, I use the Jo Sonja brand of paint because I love it, and I think it's just a really beautiful paint to work with. So now that I've loaded that brush up reasonably well, you can see the change in the colour with these two mixed. It's such a gorgeous purpley, oh, just a gorgeous tone. So now I'm going to go and dip into the tip of the brush into the white. As you can see, there's not a lot on there. I've just popped it into the white puddle that I've got over here, and now I'm just going to move my palette over so I've got a little bit more room to play here. I'll just turn it around, and I'm just going to get the brush and put it right down onto the ferrule. So I've got a bit of water on that. I might just get that off. So you'll see what I mean anyways. So irises have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals normally. No, 6 petals. What am I doing? I can't even count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, six or 7 petals. Depends on the iris, I suppose, but this is not a realistic iris. But when you look at it, you will think, oh, that looks like an iris. So here we go. So just press your brush down flat onto the ferrule and stand it up like that, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push out away from me, just pushing that out, and see how that's feathering out. I'm going to give it a little twist, and then I'm going to bring it back down into the center. Look at that. How awesome is that? Too easy. So that's the back petal, okay? So I'm going to do the top of the flower first, and I could probably get more out of this one, so I'm going to try. I'm not going to reload my brush. So I'm going back into this point here. I'm going to put the tip or the end of the ferrule just there, and I'm going to push it out that way because I want to go into that direction and come around. And so just stand it up again, push it out, and then back in towards that center petal there at the back. Okay, maybe I should have put a little bit more paint on. That's all right. I still like that effect. So I'm just going to go back into my puddle here, pick up some more of the purple, pick up some more, probably a little bit more, the permanent alizarin. So I'm loading that brush up beautifully. It's got lots of paint on it. Then I'm going to go over and put a little tip of the white on again. Now you don't have to use white. You can actually lighten this tone here into a paler shade of this tone, but I just like the white because it gives a really good contrast. So, and I think because it's a watercolor paper, it's actually sucked the moisture out of my brush, and that's why I've got that little bit there, but I'll fix that later on anyway. So doing the same, but only we're going this way, out and back in. So ferrule in the center, push up, bring it up and around, and bring it back down towards the center. It's done it again. I think it's the watercolor paper. So if I was doing this on canvas, it would be much different to that. So I'm just going to pick up some paint and paint that in on both sides. Kind of lost the back a little bit, but we're going to shade in there later. I'll just bring it up a little bit closer so you can see. All right, so there's the 3 at the top. Rather than have it look so uniform, what I'm going to do is the middle stroke coming down here again. So I'll grab some more paint here. I think I'm getting a similar shade. It doesn't really matter. It'll all look good in the end. So just making sure that I've really loaded that brush up. Again, going back into a tip of the white. And the more white you put on it, obviously, the greater the contrast is going to be. I don't want it too much so. So I'm just going to turn that on the side so it's easier for me to push outwards. So straight again in the middle, just join up the ferrule where you started. Push out. See how the brush is really splaying outwards there, and then just lift it up and bring it back in towards the center. I have seen feathered looking irises like this, but isn't that a great, doesn't it give a really great shape? I love it. I think I need some more purple in that, so we'll pick up some more here. Maybe a little bit more. See how I'm really dabbing it down on the spot, because if you're painting like this, you're actually painting your palette and you're wasting your paint. So it's good to just press up and down on the spot so that you've got some good coverage on your brush. Going back into the white, might put a little bit of extra white on it, although it doesn't look like much. I'll go again. There we go. See what happens here. So I'm going to try and get these petals out each side here, but I'm not going to curl them around necessarily. I'm going to try and curl them out and down. So we'll just go back into where the ferrule ends here, back into the center again. Pushing it out. I'm lifting it up now and bringing it back in. I don't know, it looks a bit funky. We'll try the other side. I might lengthen that. And pushing it out and back around. I'm twisting the brush around and bringing it back up. It gets rid of that excessive white there, so I might do the same again over here. While the paint's still wet, you can just change it, mix it back up. And okay. Now it looks a little bit crazy, but it's going to look more like an iris in a minute, okay? So this bit here, I'm going to just add some white to bring down there. I'll just go back out, come back around. So it's just lifted it up a little bit. Might do the same with the other. Okay, I think I've gone a little bit longer on this one, so I'm going to go back over this one again and just bring it back down a little bit. Okay, I can see where I'm going with this, I hope. All right, so I'm just going to put that brush aside, so I'm not going to have to wash it all out straight away. So I'm going to put a little bit of this red here, permanent alizarin, over the yellow. I've made it quite watery. I don't want orange as such, but I'd rather some yellow, more yellow on that. All right, so in the center, it's still probably too orangey looking, so I might just dab some yellow over top of it. So I'll just get some neat yellow onto the very tip of the brush, and I'm not blending it in. Just because if you look at irises, they've got quite often a yellowy orangey sort of center. I'm not a botanist, so I really don't have a clue as far as the reality of that. I'm just going up the stem a little bit, not the stem, up the petal there. So that's starting to take a bit better shape. Okay, sometimes in the center it does go up a little bit on this one here, so I'm just going to push up a little bit of that colour, and I'm going to come in and shade around here just to sit those petals out a bit. I'm going to use my shader brush for that, my angle shader. I love this brush, and I've put a little bit of medium on it just so that it can move along a little bit with the this medium is a magic mix. And it's not going to take away the consistency of the binder or the actual pigment, but it's going to allow me to blend nicely and sort of put a shadow or a bit of shading in there. When I use shading, what I tend to do is I've got some Payne's Grey here. I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey to this colour here that I've mixed. So I'm only going to use the tip or the toe of the brush, and I'm going to blend the paint along that way towards the heel of the brush, and that way I can actually flatten it out, and it's not going to leave a line, it's going to leave a graded paint. So we'll just go up here, grab some of this colour here. I might have grabbed too much of the Payne's Grey. It doesn't matter so much because I'm getting both that beautiful permanent alizarin in there. So see how I'm just blending it on the spot and it's starting to swim across the brush a little bit. If you press it down, it'll swim and push it back that way. I'm hoping you can see that my hand's not in the way. Just bounce it up and down. So it's giving me some of these colours here, but I've toned it with the Payne's Grey. It's a wonderful shading colour. Just obviously got to use just a very small amount. So I'm just going to move that aside. I'm going to shade up the top where this one comes across. So I might just turn that around so I can see it better. And just pressing down, I'm going flat down. I'm not going up on the tip. I'm just going to flatten it out. You'll see the result in a minute. So that's given it a beautiful shade, and it's sort of popped that one forward a little bit. Do the same on the other side. Just probably see it easy. I'm holding the paper up. Oops, out of screen there. Holding the paper up so I can see it better under the light, and I'm just going to go around there just so that it pops this one forward on there. I'm going to do the same to the bottom as well, and just in here where the petals meet, I'm just going to put some shading in under there. This is obviously going a little bit further than this. I didn't use any shading or anything. I just used the paint as it came off the brush. So I'm just going to pop more paint on there and just come around here. Actually, I might do around here first. So I'll just, you've got the toe of the brush going into the corner. And just flattening it out nice and flat and bringing it up. Okay. I'll just pick up a little bit more medium on that. And I'll do the same here as well, just to separate those petals. I'm just going to go straight across there. I might even press some shading around the outside edge. I painted a really large picture using this style of painting, and I had it in an exhibition when I was living in Sydney, and it was the first painting that sold. It was absolutely stunning, even though it probably took me, oh my goodness, probably an hour to create, and I did it in oils and just using this type of iris. And I had it on a really, really bright green background, almost a fluorescent type of green background, and I put gorgeous purple irises on it, and it was stunning. I think one of the local council members at the time that came in pre all the clients, like people looking at the exhibition coming in, and she snapped it up before anyone else could get a hold of it, which is good for me. And then I painted my daughter and son-in-law a trio on a really bright yellow background, and they're absolutely stunning. So it just, even though it's a quick way of painting, it's an effective way. So I'm thinking I might just put some shading along here because it's looking a little bit ratty. Looks like bugs have been at it, which is fine. And maybe just go along the edge just to, yeah. I'm also thinking that I might put some lines, how I painted the pansy. I put some lines down the middle. Sometimes irises have them down the middle as well. So I might just put a few pale lines down here. Could probably put some more white, but I think I like the look of this muted sort of lighter shade there over the white, but I still like the white. I think obviously I painted over that one, but generally as you're pushing that brush out, it'll blend in and you won't need to worry about putting extra colour on or toning it down. It'll be the perfect colour because it all just works in. Normally I would put the stem in first and then paint the iris on top of it. But for today I'm just doing the iris, and I'm just going to put that down before I do some damage to it, and put a couple of lines coming down from the centre. These are not going to be super obvious, but I know they're there, and I think they just finish it off. They probably can't see them very much, but I'm actually happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably wash that brush out, and I want to do a stem and a leaf, just showing you just how simple it is to do that. So I'm going to pick up some of the green here. I want to make a paler green than that one. This is, oh gee, what is it? I can't remember the shade, but obviously it's not a bright green, but I want it a little bit more yellow in it. So I'm just picking up a little bit of, actually probably a bit more than that, bit of yellow just to lighten up the tone a bit. Irises tend to have more of a blue-green type of leaf some of the time, depending on the iris, obviously. But for this one, it's not going to. I'm just bouncing the paint, trying to get a little bit of lightness about that. I might put some medium in with it as well, just to make it a little bit more runny. I said in my last video when I did this palette, you can actually use water, but it's ideal if you can get a hold of a couple of mediums that you're going to use often, because it helps your brush to flow, particularly on paper. And water really does water down the actual pigment as well as the binder. So you might get a more watercolour appearance, which is perfectly fine if that's what you're looking for. But you can actually get some really good, I'm just going to put a stem in here. Simple as that. Probably going to shade it in a minute, just to give it a 3D appearance. And these type of irises tend to have some, I don't know what it's called, but it's some brown, flaky, papery looking bits around there. But I'm going to put that in a minute. I'm just going to go over this. What shade will I use? Eeny, meeny, miny. Let's maybe go with the green, with the Payne's grey. So I'll move it out a bit here and just make a darker tone. See how it's gone almost back to this one, but I want it a little bit darker. So it's given me a little bit of a blue tone there. Now I can use the small angle shader, or I can just use the same brush. I'm going to put the shadow on this side, and that's not really a shadow, it's just really going to help it to look a little bit more 3D rather than just a flat colour. So I probably should change brushes, but I'll just see how we go down here. Just straight down. Now to get a 3D you need 3. So not just 2 colours, so I'll probably go a little bit lighter on the other side. It hasn't painted in perfectly, but you know, I don't mind the little scratchy look there. So we'll just, what colour will we go with? We might go a lighter colour than this, so I'll add a little bit more yellow to that. Maybe a little bit more. And just go down the side. Didn't make much of a difference actually, but let's go a little bit of white then. Don't like using white to, you know, make it too light, but if you're going to be painting this sort of thing for real, a beautiful way of getting highlights on your work would be to put, and I'll show you, I might show you with this one, this bit here in a minute, is to put some white dry brushing on it and then put a little bit of a glaze or a colour wash over top of it, and then you've got that lovely extra bit of white that comes through, but it's not white, it's actually, there we go. So I'll put 3 colours in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. You might not be able to see the difference with this terrible lighting I've got in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my angle brush again, and I'm going to pick up this colour, and I'm going to put some leaf in. So just going on the chisel edge of the brush, and I'm going to bring it round and flatten it out just so that we've got just a leaf really, and that's all it's going to be. So I'll put I keep picking up the piece of paper, I'll put that down and we'll go about here. So I'm starting up on the chisel edge, flattening it down, bringing it all the way down. Okay, you can leave it like that, or you can put some different tones down the center with the darker color just on the chisel edge, some stripy look. I might do that in a minute. We'll just see how we go. Just a bit more medium. I've set up my palette like this. Normally I stick the white on one side or a darker color on the other side. The Payne's Grey I usually stick in the middle and the other colors down the side. Typically I would normally be using it like this because I can blend there and paint here. What I don't want to do is put my hand or my elbow in my paint, so that's why I've sort of turned it around at the moment, because I've got limited space here while I'm trying to show you. So I'm just going to put another couple of petals in. I might just put some paper under that so I don't paint on my background there. So just starting down a little bit lower this time on the chisel edge, pressing down, coming down towards the center. Okay. Gonna fill that in. I don't like it like that, so I'm just going to add a tiny touch of water to the brush there and go over it again. So on the chisel edge, bring it down, just fill it in. And I'm going to use another one, but I think I'm running out of paint here, so I'm just going to paint up again. Bit of yellow, as we started out earlier. A bit of medium. That'll keep it from hopefully just pulling apart on the paper. So I might go over this side just to balance it out. 2 is never a good idea. It's usually 3s or 6s, or, you know, usually uneven, actually, not so much 6s, but 5s. And just fill that in. Okay, what I might see how I've come down the middle like that with that darker shade on my brush. I'm just going to do that again. Come down just so that the leaf looks interesting and it's not all flat. I'm going to shade the leaf as well, just down one side, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Come down there, do the same. I'll grab some of this one. Go darker. See how I'm putting some little strokes in there. Now I'm going to use this and I'm going to put some shading like I did with the Payne's Grey. In fact, I might pick up a bit of Payne's Grey. See how I've just kept it on the toe of the brush there. Just push that over and blend it down a bit. I've got a lot of paint on here. I'm just going to come in behind here. Let's sort of pop that one forward a little bit. We might do that with this other one as well. And I'm also going to do it for this stem. I'll just come darker there. This is a brilliant brush. You can use it in so many ways. See how it's just sort of pushed that back a little bit. Yeah, but I don't know, those leaves don't look very interesting to me, so I think I might use some lighter colour. I'll just wash my brush slightly and get some white on it. So we'll go into this one here. Let's grab a bit more of that. I'm going to use it up on the chisel edge again. Some of this paint is still a little bit wet, but that's okay because acrylic dries very quickly, and that's the blessing of it. That's why I love using it. I used to do a lot of oils in my past, and I found that I was just, you know, it was taking forever. My first oil that I ever did, my beautiful original oil, was a gorgeous waterscape, and I was so thrilled with it. And my son, my eldest son, who's now I think he's turning 43 this year. Actually, he was 2 at the time. I'd left my oil out on the table to dry. Got up in the morning and the little darling had spread yellow paint all over my beautiful waterscape, which is all blues and greys and just lovely, lovely colours. Yeah, so he did that, and I thought, what can I do with this painting? And so it ended up being a bit of an abstract with yellow smeared paint all over it. But that's why I love to use the acrylic or the gouache, because it dries so quickly. Now I'm just going to get a bright green, and I'm going to go over here and put a bit of a wash, because see those pale strokes there? I want them to look a bit brighter, so I'm just going to put a bit of a wash over it and see what happens. So I'll just grab my green and I'll be back. Okay, so I popped a bit of yellow green on my palette here, and I'm just going to get some of the medium and just blend here, because I want to use the chisel edge of the brush, because I'm going to come down straight over it as I did before, but just picking up a tiny bit of yellow green, blending it into the medium. You can see how gorgeous that is. It's a real bright green. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, what on earth is this woman doing? She's going to ruin it. But we'll see. If we do, we can just paint over it. That's no biggie. So it's just going to give it a little bit of brightness, because at the moment it's looking a bit dull. So we're just going to come down like I did before over the same road. Look at that. You can see it's lifted it up. And because it's actually a it looks like almost a fluorescent colour, but because I've used the medium, now you can use Magic Mix or another medium like glaze medium, or you can even just use water if you need to, but it's made it a lovely transparent sort of washy colour, but it's really lifted that leaf when you look at it compared to the others, and I like it, so I'm going to do it with the others. I might even do it with the centre, so I'll just come down the centre there. You can see what it's doing. It's really lifting those forward and lifting them from being flat, which is not cool. We don't want flat looking paintings. But now that's brought out the white. See what I was saying before? If you're going to put some dry brushing or some white down, and then you can make a beautiful light area, and then you can just put a wash of colour over it, and you won't lose the bright or the lightness of the white underneath. It'll still be there, but it won't be white. It'll be the tone that you put over top of it. So I'm really happy with that. I think I might leave it at that, because I don't want to I think, you know, less is more. Sometimes you can just keep going and making it perfect, and I do tend to do that. So I'm just going to stop right now before I do any damage to it, because I'm happy with the way that that turned out. I'm happy that you've stayed with me. I hope you have. And if you feel it's worthwhile, give me a tick. And if you'd like to subscribe, I'll be really thrilled about that. So thank you for watching.